p.m. and we'll call this meeting to order.
If you'd like to join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we invite you into this room. We ask that you open our hearts and minds to hear you, to grant us wisdom, and to lead us as we work to lead this city. Please be with us as we go about our lives. Protect us and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All council members are present. Do we have any public comments, Chief?
There was not.
Thank you, sir. No public comments at this time. Moving on to consent agenda. A, fiscal year 2025 investment report, quarter 1. B, budget report, December 24. And approval of minutes from regular meeting held January 13th, 2025.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion carries. Okay. Moving on to Employee Service Award. This is for
I'll get it signed. Put it in for me.
this is for Mr. Eric Forrester. He has braved 5 years with the city of Richwood. So congratulations and thank you for blessing us with your presence, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Picture with them?
Yes.
I don't have the paper for them.
You'll have to take a shot.
Trish, will you take a picture of them?
To the photographer over here.
I don't have the paper.
Put my finger in.
Here, I've got one.
Take it where there's no people behind.
Do you have a copy of it?
He needs this.
There you go.
He brought a copy of his own service.
No, it's in the packet. I have it printed, I just didn't bring it over here. To save time. It's it, that's the same thing. Just on a cardstock.
Y'all both look guilty.
Congratulations.
No, he saved my butt.
That just felt unusual.
Oh.
The jet will be delivered tomorrow.
Thank you, thank you.
I'll get you, buddy.
Let's print one of those.
We got them handed, Jeremy.
It's proof that it exists, it's just not in the room.
What else do you know?
You're supposed to sign that. I'm supposed to sign that.
I will do that for you,
It's
sir.
supposed to be him signing, but I don't know if you wanted to sign it.
Any more awards for yourself?
No.
Okay, next up we have a presentation, A, fiscal year 2024 annual audit presentation.
To partner with our audit firm, Silo Brown and Hill, or as I call him, PBH, or peanut butter. He's here to go over our audit.
I think people would rather be eating peanut butter than talking about audits, but anyway, y'all have 3 documents in front of you, and I'm actually starting with the financial statements. I'm not going to go over these in a ton of detail, but just hit some of the high points, so if you want to follow along in the really is the reason why we were here. It's our independent auditors report, and what we're doing is expressing opinion on the financials of the city of Richwood as of September 3rd, best opinion that we can offer as an outside accounting agency. And so what that means is we did not have to modify your report and tell if the numbers were correct. So again, this is only a 3-page report, but when this gets looked at by bond review people, rating agencies, grantors, they like to see the unmodified opinion. And although we really work with Tricia and her department to get this done, the fact that this is an unmodified opinion is a citywide endeavor. It's not just 2 or 3 people, it's the whole city. If you don't have the controls to work and they don't follow them, then they're not worth the paper they're printed on. So again, only a 3-page document, but really important. Starting on page 4 is the management's discussion and analysis. And really, this was put in several years ago to kind of help people that don't do what Tricia and I do all day, kind of break down the report into more narrative format. If you look at page 6, it has This is the only place anymore in the report where you have comparative financial statements where you can look at last year versus this year and see how the city did. Also, if you flip over to pages 7 and 8, you can see you have a summary of your capital assets, which is all of your water system, your vehicles, your buildings, all those type of things, along with all of your outstanding debt. And so those are all on page 8. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that document, but just know that that's there. And if you're having trouble looking at the numbers, the notes, and that report help explain those factors that the city has in a little bit more detail. So if you want to look, we get into the numbers. If you look at page 13, this is your balance sheet as of September 30th. So remember, this is just a measure of one day. The report I'm going over in a minute is a summary of 12 months. So if you look at pages 13 and 14, the city ended up with almost about $3.5 million of total assets in your governmental funds. $3 million of that is in cash and pools. The rest of that is taxes receivable, which is a combination of your sales tax that you've earned but don't collect until after the end of the year, and unpaid property taxes that are still waiting to be collected. We also have a due from other governments, which is some granting receipts that were spent before year end but did not come in until after. So one thing that when we look at these audits, we look at risk, and if you look here, that first number, that almost 3.1 million, we confirm that 100% with an outside party. So we don't just get the bank statements and the city says, hey, we have this much cash. We actually get a letter, send it out there, and the bank sends it directly to us, not to the city, where we can verify that those funds are truly there and that no one has really manipulated the bank statement to show a different amount that's there. And with computers and technology, with the way it is now, we have seen people that have faked bank statements, and you'd be surprised how good they look with the technology that's out there. So having that outside party give us that number is super huge as far as lowering the risk of what we're dealing with. Same thing with your receivables. The sales tax receivable is really for October and November that you got paid. They're always paid 2 months late. We get that directly from the state website. So again, no involvement with asking the city. We can just go directly to the state website and make sure those numbers are right. Same with your outstanding property taxes. Those come straight from the county, as those are the people that collect them and keep track of what's been paid and unpaid. So really, when you look at your assets, very, very low risk. Accounts payable is your biggest liability there in the fund statements, almost $260,000, and those were for bills where services were provided to the city before the end of the year but not paid until after. So we make sure that we put the expense in the proper period, and again, a very easy thing to audit when looking at checks after year end. Your other big liability is unearned revenue. If y'all remember, you have about $140,000 left of unspent ARPA funds that should wrap up in the next year. So when you look at this, not a lot of risk on this balance sheet as far as your governmental funds, which again is your general fund, your debt service fund, your transportation fund, and then all the other little summary. So the sheet I just went over was measured as for the year. General fund ended up with a little under 2.4 million in fund balance. This is about $5,000. You're pretty close on spending exactly what you bring in every year and not having a lot. Essentially broke even, has about $400,000 left. But you can see, if you look over at these total columns, a little under $2.7 million of property taxes, again, 100% confirmed by the county. Sales tax, again, right off the state website. Grants are a little over $1 million. We get a state to vendor website, and we look at grant reports that the city had. So again, just not a lot of risk out there in the governmental funds, which is great when you're doing these audits to know that I can get super comfortable with these numbers without just having to rely on Tricia or Eric just saying, hey, yeah, this is what we have. So just wanted to point those out. Again, good reserves in the fund balance areas, so that's great. Really the other big part that the city has is your water system, which is on pages 19 and 20. And again, essentially, the water system broke about even for the year. Operations were about, just your operating income was a deficit of about $35,000, so that's essentially a break even with a net position of a little over $6 million. Those revenues were all slightly higher than last year. Expenses went up a little bit as well, but again, pretty much a break even for the water system. Low risk balance sheet items. low-risk income statement items. We can look at how many water customers you have. So we get really comfortable with that number and do a lot of work to make sure that those revenues and expenditures look correct. Some of the other things, if you want to look over on pages 31 and 32, summary of your capital, operating capital assets, 1.1 million additions in governmental and about 285,000 in business. Just over a certain amount, made sure they're being recorded properly and that they're being capitalized as prescribed by GAAP. Job of this, y'all post these on your website, so if anybody has any concerns, this is all out there for them to look at. But one thing people are concerned with always is debt, and if you look at page 33, debt issued this year, and both water sewer debt and so again, people are always concerned with debt, and y'all's is continuing to go down with the list of payments that you guys make. The other thing is, I'm not sure how much we talk about this, but if you look at page 39, because the city is a part of TMRS, so 10 years ago or so, we had to start adding what they call a pension liability to the financial statements. And this year, that number is 810,000. That's a decrease from a little over $1 million last year. And again, this is not really a number that the city is ever going to have to pay. The only way anything goes to TMRS is they set a rate for you, a rate for the employer, and y'all mail them a check. This is essentially going through doing an actuarial study and estimating what the liability that you guys owe and get it on the books. And so that decreased this year predominantly because of the performance of the assets there at TMRS. But one thing I want to point out is it's, like I said, it's 810,000. And so if you look in the middle of page 39, you see that sensitivity of the net pension liability. They use a discount rate to estimate this stuff at 6.75%. If you just changed one number from 6.75 up to 7.75, you can see that liability would decrease by almost $600,000. Conversely, if you lowered the discount rate by 1 point, it would go up to almost 1.5. So just keep in mind that's a very subjective number. It's what we call an actuarial accrued liability. I mean, there are a lot of estimates in there, but in order to have full GAAP financial statements, you have to have this in here. And just to kind of show you how that works, is if you'll look over on pages 48 and 49, you can see that that's been as low as 288,000. It's been up to over $1 million. It's been 650. Kind of goes all over the place. And really, the only thing that makes that number go up or down is how the assets that are being held by TMRS perform. That's really it. Because as you know, when they send you a rate letter, they tweak it a little bit, but they never go, okay, City of Richwood, is in a deficit. Let's raise their rate to 47% instead of 12. They're not going to do that. So just wanted to point out that if y'all have seen that liability on there, just wanted to kind of point out why that's there, and that every single entity that is in TMRS has that liability on there, and they fluctuate just like it does here, and just wanted to make sure that we talked about that. The other report is what we call the single audit report. There's another two reports from us in here. We have to do our audit under government auditing standards, and we have to do test major programs, which this year is ARPA with uniform grant compliance. And if you look through here, it gives you what we call a schedule of expenditures of federal awards, which is on page 6. So because y'all spent over $750,000 of the federal funds, we have to test a certain percentage of those funds, and we get that through the coronavirus local recovery fund, which that was about almost $690,000 this year. We tested all of the requests for spending those funds, and everything was permissible under the grant compliance. All the reports are being filed timely, and like I said earlier, you have about $150,000 still sitting there that you guys probably have obligated already, and just we'll spend that in FY25. So to kind of sum it up, we started this back in December. Tricia gets us, we have a really exhaustive list of things that we look at. She gets everything in Portal for us. We pull it down and start going through it. We wouldn't be here in February if her and her team wouldn't put this in there on time. What we get, I mean, the city's not huge, but you still have 15 funds in here, and if the stuff is messy and you don't get it on time, we're here in late March or even later. So because of the city's efforts, we're here in February. Everything looked really good. We go throughout the city and talk to people about controls, talked about, you know, y'all know that there's consequences, and people know that y'all are looking at things and that y'all are concerned with fraud and things like that. So everybody that we talked to was super helpful. They got us what we need when we asked for it, and really couldn't ask for anything more from a client to do to make these things go smooth. So we really appreciate, in particular, Tricia, but everybody that we dealt with, Mr. Forrester meeting with us, kind of walking through different things that happened throughout the year. And if you guys have questions for me, I'd be glad to entertain those now, but a very good audit, and glad to have this out in February instead of going into March. So we appreciate everyone's help.
So when you talk about risk, risk of what? Like,
Okay, so, you can't be an auditor, it's kind of like being an attorney. You can't be an auditor without everyone talking about Enron and things like that. So normally, in local governments, you don't have things that have a lot of risk, but like in Enron, they had a lot of things that in order to find out what the value of that number really was, it was dependent on a lot of different factors and was hard to tie down. Like, when I get a confirmation back from a bank and it says you have $1 million in cash, there's no guesswork there, that's what you have. Whereas in some of these entities, they have things that require a lot of estimates, a lot of guesswork. Well, like the pension liability. The only reason that that's low risk is because that's done by somebody else and they're peer reviewed and they follow the rules to get those done properly. Does that kind of help? You just don't have a lot of complex transactions going on here. I mean, you have a lot of water bills, but it's in a water bill.
so like Enron was unethical.
Oh, yeah, and
was
they just,
corrupt, was fraud.
yes, and
Right.
they,
So
and
that's
they
what the
even,
risk is. You're saying that you're checking out to see if there's risk of fraud.
oh, we always have to be looking for fraud. So every time we look at an invoice, every test work we do, we have to keep in mind that people could be fraudulently giving this to us. You know, we've had places where you start trying to ask people what happened with this number, they don't get back to you. They give you stories that don't match, and you kind of go in and you start looking and seeing things that aren't what they should be. We don't have that here.
Good, that's great. So how deep into the weeds do you get? Like,
Pretty deep.
you
I
go
mean,
to GL details and make sure the
Oh, we-
invoices
we-
batch and all
Okay,
that
so
stuff?
we get a trial balance, which is just a summary of all of your year-end balances, but yes, we get a detailed GL, your sales tax or your biggest revenue. The sales tax is, we consider it low risk because everybody here that collects it sends their forms into the state assimilates all those, and then they send you a check. So there's 12 of them. So I can go in very easily and verify that those numbers are correct. Same with your property taxes, they're coming from the county. I get all the reports, drill down in there, make sure that all that looks right, your water bills. So we look at your rates. We actually look at the receivable at the end of the year and go pull bills that had a balance as of 9/30. We make sure that that balance got collected. We also go through and randomly select, 25, 40 bills, recalculate them to make sure that the right rates are in there, that they're being calculated properly. We do, salary is on file and agrees to what they're supposed to be getting paid. We pick 25 random, just regular transactions for bills that y'all have paid. Make sure that if Eric's signature is required for that to be paid, that whatever y'all's controls that you have in place, we test that. And then each invoice that we test for grants, capital additions, we're testing that as well. So yeah, we're not down all the way in the weeds, or we would never finish. And this would cost, $150,000. Yeah, but we get pretty detailed, and we won't come with an unmodified opinion unless we feel comfortable that our work papers and the work that our team did feels like we can support the opinion that we're offering. So yeah, we get down in it.
Do you see any possibilities to put more money in our pocket?
Okay, from an operational standpoint, we don't really look at things that way, but, regularly going out, making sure your water rates are appropriate. I know y'all's property tax rates.
The reason I ask is I had the privilege of going through a comptroller audit this year. But it actually turned out pretty good because, you know, I'm focused on doing something else other than accounting, you know, but found that there was situations where I could actually put more money in my pocket, you know, so those audits, anyway, these audits can sometimes point out opportunities for, you know, waste, stuff
Right.
like that.
And we, you know,
Or overspending, or, you know,
yeah, I
paying
mean,
things
and
you
y'all,
don't
there's,
pay
I didn't
for.
go over it here, but y'all have a budget that you guys spend a lot of time on. You know, we also look at each line and make sure that they're close to budget, or if it's over or under, we understand why. But really, you know, the way that you generate revenue, there's a little bit less discretion in how you can do that than at a private business. You know, you can't just, I mean, changing the tax rate, you have to vote on it. If it goes over a certain amount, you have to explain why you're doing it. Sales tax, you have no control over, I guess, other than maybe you could change the rate if you wanted to.
So audit is specifically on risk, not,
Yeah, it's not really like what you're talking about, where we're not looking at, okay, you have 15 people here, you can do the same amount of work with 13. We're not looking at it like that. But, you know, if we come across something where we feel like, oh my gosh, y'all are really over duplicate here in the smaller entities, just because there's just less people to pull from, so you have a lot of,
last question. Clean bill of health, or?
yeah. Yes.
All right. Anything else? Well, thank you for that presentation.
Sure, thanks, Mayor. Thank you, council,
Thank you.
appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Discussion action item D to A. So we're gonna discuss and consider continuing agreement with current auditing firm or authorizing staff to advertise requests for proposals for auditing services.
So the reason we're moving this up is because John said he would be happy to answer any questions. You all have a memo in your packet. This audit that John just completed was our fifth. As GFOA says, government entities should enter into multi-year agreements of at least 5 years in duration when obtaining the services of independent auditors. There's a lot of reasons for this. One is familiarity, so it's cost savings, it's more efficient. Before I came, we had the same auditor for 26-some plus years. The books were a mess, and we needed a change. So we put out an RFQ at that time. We got 3 respondents, one of which was peanut butter. And so I've been very, very happy with the way they work with us. They are available to me 365 days a year if I have a question. But I feel confident in the work that they do for us. And so I reached out to John before tonight and asked him if we were to extend 2 more years. Now, this is not a contract. We sign a letter of engagement every year. So we're not agreeing to a contract for 2 more years. But he has given us pricing for 2 more years that is the same as he gave us 5 years ago. So that's pretty unheard of. Now, if we decided to go out for RFQs, I would hope that they would put together a presentation and send it in to us. However, that's going to cost them, and therefore our cost is most likely going to go up. But I just want you guys to have some input on it. We just reached the minimum that GFOA recommends. They don't have a maximum. It's more on the working relationship and how you feel. They do suggest changing up the team, so it's not always the exact same people looking at your figures. I have yet to work with the same people below John and Clayton in a year, because there's always different auditors looking at it. So I myself, my opinion, is that they are giving us a good offer to continue it at the same price, and that we should continue. But John is here if you have any questions about it.
Mayor, Council, if I could add too, I think one of the most important aspects with auditing services for us is a lot like engineering. It's not just the end of year report for the project culmination of engineering that gets us to the project. It's the interim period, being able to reach out by phone. If we can get, we run into things a lot with accounting that are unusual for us. Where should this go? Should this be capitalized? Should this be, those kind of questions that usually come in year-end adjustments. We can reach out, we can get that answer, we can do it now, and we don't end up with a 5-page report of year-end adjustments that really make the public go, what? They don't understand that. So I think in our case, it's being able to reach out and get a response back. Now, we can do the correct entry. Now we can make the adjustments we need, and we don't end up with a 5-page adjustment at the end of the year, which as a citizen, if you don't understand accounting, would raise an ire to me. But we all know year-end adjustments. So not to steal your thunder, I just think that that's a benefit to us, that we always get a response back.
For an example, with the settlement that was recently reached, I've never had to account for something like that. And so today I emailed John and Clayton, said, how should I do this? Within an hour I had an answer. You know, it's just, it's not as often as it used to be, but it's still probably monthly that I'll say, hey, you know, I'm working on this and I'm not sure how it should best be shown. When we first hired them, it was daily.
Yeah.
But they were very instrumental in getting us to where we are as far as the transparency of our financials, and I would like to continue for at least 2 more years.
I think the city's improved financial status over the last 5 years is probably greatly attributed to your firm, so thank you for that. We appreciate you being on call for Tricia and staff as needed. I haven't seen any evidence to consider looking elsewhere. We're grateful for you extending the same price offer. That's great. So in my opinion, I think we should continue services.
I think that we should go to bid, not out of any, hopefully they win the bid, but just from a legal standpoint, it just seems like we should. We're not a private business, we're a public business, or a public entity. And, you know, considering what he's told us, he'd probably end up winning the bid, but I do think that we should go to bid.
Any other comments?
I understand the thought process maybe for going to bid, but again, I would fear that your price is gonna increase. I mean, to not have the same, to have the same price that you had 5 years ago with the way costs have been, I would
You know, and you
continue
can't,
to stay where you're at if it's still working.
and you can't select an audit based on cost.
Yeah.
No, but
You,
it's,
that's why it's an RFQ.
Yeah,
You
it
have
says
to-
proposals, but it would be
but-
qualifications.
But it's a request for qualifications. However, we have just met the bare minimum that GFOA recommends for continuity and efficiency. I have absolutely no doubts that they do everything professionally and above board, and if I was messing up, they would let me know. So,
So when you selected them 5 years ago, why were they the front runner?
their presentation was really good. One firm I know was from New Mexico. They were trying to get a foothold in Texas. I like, Waco is, they're from Waco, you should know. They're close enough that he can be here tonight.
You just like Chip and Joanne. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
I need to
They
go
bring you
visit
banana
them so I can go
pudding.
Magnolia. But anyway, I've never been there. But anyway, you know, their presentation was just really excellent. And they
Also
were-
check with other cities. I know
Yeah.
several other city managers who use them. And their recommendation is tantamount to
Yeah.
if
Yeah, we
they're
checked
working
with-
good at one city, they will
We checked with
probably
other
work good at
cities
yours.
that had them. And I do not remember off the top of my head if KML, who was our previous auditors, submitted one. I really didn't want to go local. I feel like there's more objectiveness if you're not local.
Agreed.
So, I don't think, I can't remember if they did or not. But anyway, we were very impressed with it.
I was just curious.
Yes, they
It's
did.
typically something that always
Yeah, 'cause
stands
I think
out.
we only had 3.
They did.
And, New Mexico, I think it was, or Arizona, something like that. That's too far away. But yet, it's nice because with technology now, they have a portal. They put a list on there of what they need, and I just start cranking out stuff,
That's great. Availability
The
is
days,
awesome.
the days of the auditors having to come here and sit here for a week,
Trunk full of
Set up a
binders.
spare office.
Now, they do come down occasionally to do the mid-year audit. That's when they talk to the other staff, check on our checks and balances and our procedures, and that's how they evaluate, that fraud reduction. But they do a really thorough job. And everybody I've worked with there has been the equal level of professionalism.
I like that. Does anybody wish
Yeah,
to take a motion?
I'll
I'll make-
second the motion to retain them as the auditing firm.
We had to have a first, Mr. Yearson.
Oh, I thought Amanda did.
I'll do it officially.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to continue the agreement with our current auditing firm, Patillo, Brown and Hill, for the additional 2 years as offered, for the same rate.
I'll make a motion to go to bid.
Well, it's gotta get a second.
You can't do that yet.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Can
All
we do a
again?
line vote so I can make sure I hear it right, please?
Councilmember
Sorry.
Stahlberg, how do you vote?
I don't wanna be complicated.
I'm good with it.
Okay.
Nay.
Councilmember Challenger?
Nay.
Councilmember
Aye.
Reynolds? Councilmember Yearson?
Aye.
Councilmember Fountain?
Aye.
Okay. Let the record reflect, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you for extending your services.
No worries. And thank you all for letting us be here tonight and
Thank you,
taking the
John.
time to let us talk. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good job.
There was one condition on extending that. John, there was only one condition, you had to sit through the whole meeting.
I told him he was free to go after this.
Offer revoke.
Be safe going home.
Thank y'all.
Take care,
Thank you.
John. Thank you.
I can't hear Jeremy down
Jeremy, what-
I'm sorry.
there. No, I said I asked for that just because I can't hear Jeremy down there sometimes when they're all decided.
Okay, now back to, well, it would be B, but A. Discuss and consider adopting ordinance 25-527, amending Appendix A zoning, Section 7, updating the minimum square footage for accessory structures to require a form survey.
So, a couple years ago, we had some issues with accessory structures not being built within setbacks. So council enacted an ordinance requiring form surveys pre-pour for foundations on accessory structures over a certain size. It was 10 by 12 at that time. I'll pull it up here so y'all can see it. And that was based on the 2015 building code, which required any building greater than 10 by 12 to be permitted. We recently, as a city, updated to the 2021 building code, which swapped to a square footage rather than the 10 by 12 just footage requirement. So we're in conflict with building code right now. As it stands, an accessory building that wouldn't require to be permitted technically requires a form survey before pour. So this is just getting us in compliance with the international building code that we've already adopted. So it'll move from 10 by 12 to 200 square feet. However you want to get there. So anything greater than
Whatever
200.
That's
Yes.
the problem we
What
had.
stemmed this all? Just to
change?
Yeah.
We just realized that the international building code required a permit to be pulled greater than 200 square feet, and our current ordinance was in conflict. So if you go based on the previous ordinance, it says that this is basically null and void if there's a conflict. So we're just bringing it to match, so that any accessory structures that require a permit will need a form survey prior to pour for foundations.
It doesn't say accessory structures, it says buildings.
It's the same, an accessory building or accessory structure.
I mean, that's not a big deal.
If it's on a foundation,
Well, so on a foundation is the clear.
yeah, and on a permanent foundation must have a form survey prior to building.
So this is on a foundation, this isn't like a portable building?
Right, if it's a temporary structure or building, it does not require a permit.
So like your
or
tough
form
sheds,
survey
that's
permit,
put
because it
on
can be
there.
moved, but if it's
Yeah.
affixed to a foundation, it can't be
Pretty much if you
moved.
do a shed smaller than that, you would have to have it, but. any
Right.
building.
So right now, if somebody wanted to build a 10 by 12 shed, they don't have to pull a permit for concrete or that, but if you go based on our ordinance here, they would require a form survey when no permit's required to be pulled anyways, so we're just in conflict. This is just to match the building
So
code.
you just need a motion to,
Approve the ordinance,
Alright.
I'll bring it back up. It would be motion to adopt this ordinance.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 25-527, amending Appendix A zoning, Section 7, updating the minimum square footage for accessory structures to require a form survey.
Second.
Now we have a third. All in favor?
Aye.
I'll make it to Jim.
Let the record reflect the
Nay,
motion.
and the only reason is because it says structure, not building, and the other one says building. It's just different, so.
One,
It's
one
passive.
nay and
That's fine.
four yeas. Motion carries.
Okay, this one's.
Okay, B, discuss and consider adopting ordinance 25-526, adopting a fee to defray cost of collecting delinquent utility accounts and amending Appendix B fee schedule of Richwood Code of Ordinance.
Me again.
Welcome back.
The next two items are somewhat connected, but the first one is required before we do the next one. Per state law, if we have an ordinance that says so, we can, can't think of my word, put a 30% fee on delinquent accounts. That would then be collected if we went to collection. These would be accounts that there'd been no activity, no payment plan set up, no collection for 60 days. We currently have a good number of accounts that fall into that category. We don't have any way to collect them ourselves, really, but anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we can get a collection company, we would need to pass an ordinance,
It's an ordinance.
that allows us to place a 30% fee on top of the balance owed on these accounts.
Is that to
Looking forward
offset?
to the collection piece. I think I briefly or vaguely remember
Is it okay if I
discussing
talk
this.
about it all together?
I mean, it's still related to collections. I
Which
don't,
section are they?
B and C. One's
Yeah,
to
and-
enact an ordinance authorizing collection fees to be added to accounts, and then C is authorizing an agreement with the company. So we're not
So-
talking about the company.
so
we're
can I
talking
just
about the
explain
collection.
about how the
Let's make
collection?
it clear you're going B and C.
Okay.
I think you're fine.
Well, I'm specifically concerned about defraying the cost of collecting,
Yes.
so that's what my question is about.
Okay,
And I
so-
think that we were only to pay the fee to the collection agency if they were
So-
successful.
Yes, so, and this would be no matter what firm we went with.
Right,
I'll
If
just
we
use.
went with a firm.
Yes,
yes.
yeah, even if we collected it, it would be on there, but, I'll just use a round number. So $100 delinquent account would become $130. If we were with a collection firm, we would get our $100 that we are owed, they would keep the 30%. And this is allowed by state law. So that the collection is at no cost to us unless they, even if they collect. But if they don't collect, there's no cost to us at all. There's no cost to us if they do collect, but we get our money.
Risk is all on them.
Yes.
So when you transfer that receivable to a collection agency, the collection agency doesn't own the debt, so, I'm not particularly proud of this moment, but I have not paid a bill at one point. I typically do pay my bills just to settle that. It was a matter of principle at the time, and I
Didn't
didn't
pay it. And I was like, you want to fight? Let's fight. And come to find out that the collection agency didn't own it. So whenever they sent it to a collection agency,
No, they're just.
they didn't
giving
own it
permission
anymore,
to
so
go
I didn't have to pay them. You know, and so it basically swiped that debt clean because the entity transferred it to the collection agency. The collection agency didn't own it in the first place, so
We aren't
I didn't have to pay 'em at all.
transferring anything.
Not reporting.
We
Still
still
on
own the debt. They still owe the city of Richwood. If they walked in here after we'd given their name to the collection company, but before the collection company had talked to them and they said, hey, I've been feeling bad, my debt from 2019, I really want to pay. They're going to pay us, you know, they still owe us, that's what I'm saying.
Just from prior experience with municipal court, we use the same firm, a firm. The collection company does not, they can collect funds, but in most cases, they direct the customer to contact the city to make payment. Payment's not being made to the firm.
And
They're
this
just doing the work to get them to come pay.
This will be similar to how the county collects delinquent property taxes. The difference is the state of Texas does not allow us to put liens on properties for utility bills, but you can for property tax. So we really have no other avenue that we can do without hiring.
is it 60 days? Is that what I read? Or is it?
If there was no contact with them, if they weren't working, I mean, we have some accounts that are on payment plans, and they may have a balance that's more than 60 days old, but they're holding on because of their payment plan. But we have debt going back to 2018, which is the earliest I can go to in our system. We have about, I think I put the amount in here.
Mayor, Council, this has been, we visited this before. I think Jeremy may have been the only person left on council since then. And I think what's important is we do not possess the capabilities, skip tracing, access to the data files, the databases that law firms and collection agencies have. In a roundabout story, they all charge the same thing, roughly. I think it is the same amount.
It is the same, it's the state allowed
We've had
now.
the same, roughly the same amount of bills uncollected since I got here. And she and I both are tired of looking at that exact same number year after year after year. There's a way to collect some of it. You're not ever going to get it, all of it, but there's some that is available to get. It's money that's owed us. We need to get it.
And I see it as risk neutral. There is no risk.
There
We're
is
not
no
paying
True.
anything unless they collect.
True.
And if they do collect,
But
it's,
this ordinance allows us
Yeah.
to collect that. That's what this
So we have to have the ordinance
In
approved
place,
in order for us to add the fee. If we didn't add the fee, we could still go out for collection
But we'd lose that
services, but we would lose the 30%
Right.
that they would charge us.
and we also would lose the ability or come out of pocket for an agency to handle that
Yeah.
collection for us.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I
So,
see this in two different angles. I mean, yeah, there's the people that are taking advantage of it, but then there's also the people that are having a hard time. And
those are the ones that reach out to us, that
Yeah.
talk to us, that get on a payment plan.
These are people that move out and leave accounts with balances mainly.
Mostly.
Renters.
We have 63,000 that's 60 days or older, but it does go back to 2018. Prior to me digging into this, our account application was more limited on the information we gathered. So, you know, some of those really old ones will be hard for them to collect. But if they collect $1,000, that's $1,000 we don't have right now.
I'm just thinking about the widow, you
Well,
know.
she's probably talking to us.
Maybe.
Well, and it's also less than 60
May not.
days before their water is turned off. So when someone's water is turned off, they come in and speak to us, and it's not to that point.
Yeah.
That's at 12 days post bill due, we turn water off.
Many of
So
these are
we don't
ones
get to 60.
that left a rental house. Up until I changed the form, the owner of the rental house, we didn't have it on there that any remaining bill would be their debt. now we do. But, you know, they skipped town. They may or may not have given us a forwarding address for their final bill. But all we can do is send bills. That's our only avenue. So, you know, if they get turned over to collection, they should have called and talked to me. I talk to several people every week. You know, I can't pay this amount this time, or, you know, there's one on here, and it's a huge debt. It's the biggest one on the list, and it's from Barrel Time.
What if we changed it to 120 days? I mean, their water's already off. They're down
I
and
believe
out.
it's 60 is
You
by
know, now they
statute.
gotta spend more money. I mean, really,
Yeah, 60, I think, is by statute, what we can do.
would be
State
the earliest.
statute.
That'd be the earliest we could do it.
So, but, you know, when people.
We also have the discretion if somebody does come in and say they're having a hard time to amend our due, what's due on our
Yes.
portion, so that the collection agency that did the work can still get their portion.
Yeah.
We can amend ours all the way down to
I mean,
zero.
I will give,
You know,
I will talk to anyone that's having trouble with their bill, and I will make it as comfortable for them as I can. And we do that with a lot of people. But the thing is, they have that debt. They aren't talking to us. They aren't contacting us. They maybe set up a payment plan and we never saw them again. They've moved away, you know.
I think you're discussing such a niche, small portion of the community that I think this is a very good idea.
So we need to approve the fee, and then we can talk about the firm.
Because you guys have talked to me about certain issues that people have called up here, and y'all have given leeway multiple occasions to multiple people. So I think y'all are specifying who you want to target. I think this is good, so does anybody wish to make a
Well, if we're
motion?
specifying anyone we wanna target, then they're way over the 120 or 365
We're just
days.
making a motion to
It's
carry
never
forward
been
with it.
done by the city, so the oldest ones are still on there. But we have to start.
Yes.
And if in 60 days, they have not responded to a late bill, they have not
and they
called
have no
our
water in
office.
60 days.
They,
Their account's closed.
yeah,
We
they
close
don't
it.
have water, so they're not probably even in the city. I do have one account that it's on the fourth variation of their name. We don't do that anymore either. And they call me every month. Ms. Tricia, I'm not gonna be able to pay this month. So we do work with the people that wanna be worked with. These are for the ones that aren't.
I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 25526, adopting a fee to defray costs of collecting delinquent utility counts and amending Appendix B fee schedule of the Richwood Code of Ordinance.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion carries with one nay being Mike Challenger. Okay, thank you, Ms. Trish.
Okay, so
You
then
wanna-
the next item,
Let me read it for you real quick.
okay.
Discuss and consider approving a contingent fee contract with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP pursuant to section 552-001B of the Texas Local Government Code. Said contract being for the collection of delinquent utility accounts owed to the city of Richwood, and notice of said contract is posted with the agenda in accordance with section 2254 of the Government Code.
So, about a year ago, I went out and looked for collection companies or firms that would do utility collecting. There aren't many. But I spoke with Mike Darlow from Purdue, and I spoke with another gentleman from one in Texas City. Eric and I met with both of them. Neither one of us were really all that impressed with either of them, to be quite honest, because utility collections are hard. I mean, not impressed with them personally, but our chances. But it's a lose-lose, or a win-win situation if we collect. So, the reason I'm suggesting Purdue, they are more familiar with our community. They do the collection for the county, for the property taxes. So they're already familiar with the city of Richwood, the county of Brazoria. The other one was from Texas City. I don't think he'd ever been here, you know, and he was really pushing to get the
report collections too, which we already have through our software, so, that's why I'm recommending
I
Purdue.
agree with what you're saying. Their name always pops up in the county, so I think it's a great suggestion.
They were previously our court collections agency also, and they did a fine job. We just switched software companies who are really familiar with us.
He's come out to the office 3 times, I think, to talk to me about it. I mean, he's up front. He goes, don't expect, big
Oh, yeah.
percentages, but they will do all in their power to get some money for us.
I'll make a motion to approve a contingent fee contract with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott LLP pursuant to section 552.001B of the Texas Local Government Code. Said contract being for the collection of delinquent utility accounts owed to the city of Richwood, and notice of said contract is posted with the agenda in accordance with section 2254 of the Government Code.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion carries, except for 1 nay with Mike Challenger.
Good, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to E. Discuss and consider approving task order with Strand Engineering to provide on-call engineering support services as requested by city staff.
So this is much like Trish's, if it's okay with council, I need to combine a bit of E and F since they are linked. And essentially, the on-call engineering is going to serve for consulting based on the chloramine conversation we've been having for the past couple of months. And I want to start with that if I can. So the chloramine, the city of Richwood disinfects with gaseous chlorine. Technically, we make chloramines because there's naturally occurring ammonia in the water. But we can't control how much ammonia there is. We have to use what we have. And until the completion of the North Water Plant, we weren't aware of any differences. The wells 5 and 6, main wells in the city, operate above 0.6 parts per million. The North Water Plant well is at 0.6 parts per million, so we have an imbalance there. And when we start making chloramines, we need to stick to about a 4-to-1 ratio of chlorine to ammonia for that to work properly. Here's where the problem comes in. We ran through a couple scenarios with Strand over the phone based on the ammonia that we're getting from the well at the North Water Plant. We dose properly and we stabilize the residual within the tank. It works very well at about a 1.8 parts per million. Into the distribution system, the distribution chlorine residual overall drops out immediately. We can't explain that. So typically what would happen is if you have a chloramine residual or a chloramine with the total, you blend those, logic's going to tell you you get an average of both. So it's holding over here, it's holding over here, but when we blend it, it doesn't hold. We can't explain that. The only thing that we can assume, and this is based off of data from run times, is that the trip from the North Water Plant to the elevated towers is longer over time. Retention, the chlorine starts to drop, starts throwing our ratios off, and then we get a bad ratio of chlorine. But as of now, we need to be able to put the North Water Plant into service, into SCADA, regular service. We need to look further into it. It's going to require a little bit of water modeling, some water samples, get a little bit more down in the weeds than what we can with the instrumentation we're working with. And this pertains to the on-call engine.
With Strand,
Well,
who's providing the, what is their degree?
It's out of their water department in Wisconsin. So disinfection It's not chemical, I don't think, but
As far as the person's credentials providing the guidance, are they a
Yeah.
chemical engineer? Is that,
no, they're civil, but
Okay.
it's underwater, yeah. And we're not, we're talking about chloramines here, and that mixture, and being able to look at raw water, look at water, and being able to say what needs to be done. At this point in time, we don't know if we need to even add ammonia to water. If we do, it might just be at one site, not all. But those questions remain unanswered, and we've hit a brick wall. We can't answer them any further without a little bit more assistance.
BWA saying?
BWA is consistent as consistent gets. So they,
Is it, I mean, like reaching out to those guys, are they, or can they even help us?
well, yeah.
No, it's our water system.
Yeah, and they can't explain chloramines, but I'd say we're fairly educated at it. It's getting into the blending.
Yeah.
Okay, so the city of Richwood has a blending exception we acquired from TCQ back in 2018. Technically, you're not allowed to blend disinfection processes. You're not allowed to mix them.
Where's the water from the north plant going? Where do you blend it at when it comes from?
It blends in the towers.
So that north water plant goes to the tower at
Correct, just
2004, right?
Yeah, just as BWA does the same thing to the towers. So it blends in the towers. But we're not allowed to mix disinfection processes, but since Richwood does have naturally occurring ammonia, we do technically make a chloramine, so they allow us a blending exception, but we're not permitted to disinfect or add ammonia to continue to make chloramines. It's understood, and we operate under exception.
I guess I'm not clear on what you're asking here, because it's, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're asking for us to approve, Strand to tell us if we need chlorine conversion.
Well,
So,
our current agreement, yes, I am, but our current agreement with Strand is more project-based. This is consulting, sorry?
Do you want me to help?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Speaking with Ryan, because I was trying to get the language right on this, it's more of, they need us to approve a task order that allows us to have kind of here and there conversations with them that they can bill us to.
this is for ad hoc work,
Right.
not
They
directed
need,
to a
they
project
need something
PO.
approved by the city saying that y'all authorize us within our budget that's already been approved. We don't need to set a dollar amount to it, because Cliff has money, he knows how much he has. It just allows them to then take his call, do the work, and assign it to a task order that they don't already have created. It's kind of like an open PO.
Yeah.
They're already
A
our
blanket
staff
PO.
engineer.
Right. They're already.
So they need something,
Correct.
Yes.
like with Matt,
Correct.
billable hours, but we have
Right.
this project he's working on, well, that's where the billable
Right.
hours would go.
It's more so Strand's request, their policy, to have it assigned to a task order.
It's typical with any engineering
Yeah.
firm
Right.
because they're project driven and you bill everything
Exactly.
to
So,
a project. So
Instead of
this
having
is-
a main North Water Plant project,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be a on-call
We're-
task order.
We're a little bit
that will bill
special
different
because
things
in
too.
the original agreement, we did not cover this because it was done in a bit of haste.
Yeah,
North Water Plant was up, we needed a firm on board. I think we did our homework, but we didn't go through this particular thing here. And on-call services such as this are in addition to our current agreement, therefore it's a change to the agreement, therefore it needs to come before council.
yeah.
so the task order is basically saying, we want to approve a task order for Strand to help us with water.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Not necessarily chloramine conversion,
It could be
just
anything.
water.
It could be anything.
It could
yes,
be
sir.
anything, we need engineering.
So how could we change that more? Because if we were going to have a motion for each of these, would it be better just to say, approve a task order for Strand to help us with a water treatment?
No, because we're not trying to get specific. We want to have a task order approved for anything Cliff might need, whether it's water, plats, I mean, anything. They'd want just an open task order that allows us to call for any need. That's why this was language that was provided by Ryan.
Yeah, and that's, it's not to say that, this still comes with an estimate, okay? It still has to remain within the confines of our budget. We still have to, we're still dictated by our purchasing policy on how so this is not an open P50, let's do it. It doesn't work like that. So this is just a level of flexibility, basically, in record keeping to move a little bit faster.
The chloramine discussion was just an example of why we need this. It's
Yeah.
not the only reason we need this.
We haven't been to this point yet until we got into the chloramine.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve a task order with Strain Engineering to provide on-call engineering support services as requested by city staff.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Let the record reflect the motion carries.
Thank you.
I did have one question before she made that motion.
Gotta be faster.
I'll let everybody speak before.
I did too.
Will they assume all responsibilities in regards to what they say we need in the event for the water well to get it to the levels you need?
Do you still have more to talk about with that?
Sorry?
Do you still have more for the discussion on this? Because it's the next item.
I thought we went straight to that one. But
Well, we
are
did. We
read
kind of
Let me
mixed
read
it. I just didn't know we were done with,
Okay.
if you're done talking about it. You
Let me
told them
read it
everything you
quick.
told me.
Let me read it
I
and we'll
cut you
go.
off on that, talking about
Okay.
chloramines.
F is discussion regarding the possible need for chloramine conversion within the city of Richwood's water distribution system. So my question was, are they going to assume any responsibility based off their recommendation to us, what we need?
Yeah, yes, I think so, but it's, we're going into this under the assumption that if it's addition of ammonia to water, something that simple, we can take care of it. So we are going to use their advice and best practices if we need to do so, and implement everything ourselves.
I'd personally like to get some guidance from them before we do that.
Definitely,
I'd probably say motion to table it until we hear from them.
Well, this is just a discussion.
Well, we've talked about this already, and I can't go any further without really getting.
I think we're all getting too verbose here. We need the engineer's help to figure out why our blended water is not transferring all the way through and maintaining the
Same
residual
levels.
value it is. That's all this is for, period, stop.
Okay.
We're making this more complicated. The engineer is going to tell us that this is way beyond our capability in testing that we can do. They're going to tell us, they're going to test it, they're going to give us the explanation, then we're going to come back to y'all with what the fix is. That's what it is. Right?
That's what it is.
There you go.
So we don't need a motion.
No motion needed.
I just wanted to make sure that somebody is held accountable for anything we have to spend money on if it doesn't work,
They're licensed.
No, I
Their
get it.
license is their accountability.
And bonded.
And so, Mike, just real quick, as to the legality and responsibility, all these things are, if it's their work and something goes wrong, just from a it's always a breach of a contract or an agreement.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, to answer your question, yes, depends on what Cliff comes back for us, or whatever, or what the fix is. If something goes wrong, it's because of them, then sure.
Correct.
it's their
I just wanted to make sure.
Right.
It seemed kind of hazy, because it seemed like we were going to try and shoot from the hip.
No.
I just want to make sure somebody from them, because we entrust in them, that's all.
Yeah.
Other than that, let's roll with it.
Okay.
We need to. Does anybody have anything else in regards to that? Okay. Moving on to G, consider items removed from consent agenda, which is nothing. Cliff, here we go with the capital improvements projects update.
Yes, sir. So our ARPA projects, generators are set, gas service is turned on, startup for, I think it's 720 North Mayhem will be tomorrow. Well 5 will be on Wednesday. These startup processes, this is not the transfer underload startup. This is a general startup. to ensure that all critical systems are working, being oil pumps, gas, it's running computer, everything's doing what it's supposed to be doing. It's just a startup run time for roughly an hour, not under load. There is going to be a second one, I think that has to be, I believe it's under 30% load for 4 hours. So that's coming up probably within the next couple of weeks. But the initial startup is exciting enough because we're right there. So on the Mid-Mart project, they started doing water line this week. This is open cut that they're doing. It's going to be a little bit messy for a while, but we'll get through it. The first portion of the line they're installing is down that right away between Briar Creek and Magnolia and Westeria. The reason they're doing that first because we have control that way when we start running water lines towards Oyster Creek Drive on Four Oaks, Crow Run, and Briar Creek. So they'll have the water line, the T's, the valves in place, everything like that. That's where they're at right now. The tie-ins, we're not exactly sure, hopefully by this week, but when we tie in, it'll be a pretty serious outage. Not for long, but it's the best we can do with what valves work right now. So Cypress Drive and Misty Court, that's coming up. We have a 90% design review meeting set for February 12th. We anticipate advertising for that project in late February, early March. City streets master plans. The master plans are moving, or at least the streets are. Pavement condition evaluations are to begin within a couple of weeks. And they should be complete by mid-February. And the dollars, make sure everything works out okay before we commit to that. So as of right now, we're anticipating March or April. We don't want to get much later than that because we wouldn't be able to close it out for the end of the fiscal year. But we're going to take all the time that we can just to make sure everything's okay before we commit. That's all I got.
Thank you, Cliff. Next up is city manager's report.
Mayor, council, going in with what Cliff said, we put the Parks Master Plan on hold just till we got some barrel recovery. Pleased to note on the city manager's report, we did recover $19,933.44 for Ellis Park and utility fencing repairs today. So we're good to go. We're starting to see that money trickle in now on the way we filed those. We're getting them back a lot faster. Other than that, excuse me, everything else you had on your weekly report on Friday. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to council members' comments and reports. Councilmember Stallberg, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, a couple shout outs and some information I want to share with people. As y'all know, we lost a deputy on the 15th of last month. Our sheriff stepped up, or asked law enforcement in the area to step up. Shout out to Chief and all of your personnel for covering for 16 hours, the entire county. We appreciate it as we mourned the loss of one of our own. Shout out to the fire department also, not just because you're here, Mark. No. Had a call the other day, and the response time was awesome. As always, it is. It doesn't matter where it is, whether it's just right over there in Tamarin or whether it's out in the county. So thank y'all for that. We have an event coming up on the, let me pull it up real quick. Dine for a cost of 20% of all sales will benefit the family of Jesse Vargas. February 18th, Margarita Jones, West Columbia, both Lackawanna, Lake Jackson, or both Lackawanna locations, Lake Jackson, Angleton, and Jimmy Joe's in Lake Jackson. So if y'all are able to, go out and try to support or help support that family. They need all the support they can get right now for the wife and 3 beautiful daughters. And that's all I got.
Well, thank you for those kind words, sir. Councilmember Challenger, you have anything you wish to add?
The Penguin Project is starting back up. That's a theater for special needs kids in the area. I've been involved in that for several years now. It's such a blessing to be involved. If anyone has a special needs young adult or young child, or all the way up to, I think, 21 years old, we'd love to have you a part of the Penguin Project. It's a great program for people with special needs to get them out into the community. They do a great show. So just, if you guys know anybody that has a special needs loved one, please share with them that the the Penguin Project will be enrolling right now at the theater, so right down the road.
In the college?
Yeah, well, it's right on the college parking lot.
Campus?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Councilmember Reynolds, do you have anything you wish to add?
Yeah, voter turnout, and personally, I wish that would improve.
That's it?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Yerson?
Just thank you to all the city workers for everything y'all have done. Continue to do, Trish, the audit. I mean, that's impressive to, be able to do that year after year. So thank you to you and your people for all the hard work. Cliff, your guys' hard work. Police department, fire department, always being out there. I live on the edge of 2004 and here y'all running up and down it all night. Thank you. So.
That's it. Thank you. Councilmember Fountain?
I'd like to, in talk of like the audit and things of that nature, a shout out to the finance team and to our city manager and even to past council members. If you keep up with kind of local news, you'll notice there are a lot of cities around this area that coming up on this ballot are going to be having bonds and monies that they need that is going to increase a lot of property taxes. And I think we're kind of lucky here that we have been very smart with our finances and that we have a contingency and we try to continue to follow that path so that we do not have to go out and borrow money to do a lot of the projects that we want to do around the city. So I think that's something that is of recognition and a thank you to those that have been involved in that over the past few years. So that's all, man.
That's it?
Yep.
Thank you, sir. Okay, I'd like to personally thank Mrs. Pam for attending tonight. The large audience, I'm surprised I didn't offer popcorn to you. Mark, it is great to see you outside of the fire department, up here with us. I really enjoy your time with us. Chief, thank you, along with what Paul said, stepping up last month and all the time, as well as our city staff and the audit stuff. Let's not forget it's Valentine's week, so always buy your favorite Mayor chocolate so I can give it to everybody else. And just be kind, everybody. Spread some love this week. So that's all I have. Do we have any items of community interest?
We're gonna be setting the dates for the Easter egg hunt, so be on the lookout for that. KRB has set the date for their spring cleanup. It'll be the Don't Mess with Texas Trash Off, April 5th. I'll report it again next month also. That will be the same weekend we host the citywide garage sale, so garage sale fees will be waived that weekend. And we will have the big roll-offs located around town for everyone to declutter.
Spring clean.
Spring clean it. I think that's all I have for upcoming things. I can think of.
I know we do have something in March, but I'll have the date for anybody if they want to attend.
I do have one more.
Time comes. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, that's all I
don't
had.
want to stop you.
Keep going.
KRB will be hosting a meet and greet on March 22nd here at City Hall. It's going to be from 10 to 11:30 in the morning. They're going to have representatives from the Master Gardeners come out and kind of have some lessons. They'll have snacks and refreshments. It's a good opportunity to come out and learn about the Master Gardener program along with what KRB offers to the city. A lot of people don't realize how much they do and how much they're involved in with city events. Their group size is really small. It's 4 people now doing the work of what is probably 10 or 15. So we definitely need as many people to come out and help this group. Even if you can't be on the board, just come out on cleanup days or days that they're doing the garden beds or working in the garden, if you could just come out and give a couple hours of your time, they would appreciate it.
Okay. How's our clothing stuff looking? Everything's still going good with that?
Still no mattresses.
We had
I
One
should have
right
met
here,
you.
unfortunately.
we did have
Should've met you.
Well,
an incident, but
in all fairness, there has been.
I'll say
There
there
has?
has.
Yes. Oh,
Well,
yes.
there has been, but the company's
They get swooped up quickly,
Okay,
but
very
there has
quickly.
been.
it gets
Okay.
picked up, and then we've had it overflowing quite a few times. So the company has agreed to put us on a more regular. We were every 2-week
Pickup.
pickup. I think they moved us to a weekly pickup until it kind of slows down. It's like hills and valleys of
Yeah.
things.
Spring cleaning.
Were they pretty responsive when we
Oh, yeah.
notified
Yes.
them it was
For sure.
overflowing?
For
Okay.
sure.
And that's my
Oh.
main concern. You know, it's gonna,
Yeah, sure.
Time to
You can't
time, but-
control what
I
people.
mean, I will email them
Yeah.
at 5:30 in the evening, and I get a response by 7.
Okay.
They respond to me all the time.
Good.
That's good news. Any future agenda items?
there will be.
There will be
Plenty.
There will be.
In the rest of the year.
My head.
Okay, that's all we have. The time is now 7:20 and no further items to discuss. This meeting is adjourned.